Okay, we're gonna keep going, even though we've been at this for about 2.5 hours. Damn, how much we have dedicated our time on the show, I guess. A lot of notes, a lot of notes. As we get to number 15, Kansas State. Let's talk about the changes for Chris Kleiman and his Wildcats. They lose a wide receiver, Johnson, to the portal. Giddens is off to the NFL. Lose linebacker Moore, defensive end Mott, and then defensive back Sigel. All those guys gone. Pretty good production, pretty much out the door for the defense, but should be solid enough, especially for the Big 12. For the spread offense, key players, you got Avery Johnson. Had some ball distribution issues against some elite teams. You saw it there in the intro with that interception by Alfred from Arizona State. Edwards is back. I think he's going to step up, get that same production as that Giddens did. And then you have a transfer portal get that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, Martin Jr. He comes from the FCS, Southeastern Louisiana, to be more specific. I think he's going to be a solid guy. Not have to, have a heavy load for Avery Johnson in the run game. Home run Brown, big play Brown. However you want to say Brown. Before that, he's going to be amazing this year again. Just needs some support from the other wide receivers. Oakley at tight end. There'll be another solid guy. Won't be top, but we'll get good production. Be a nice blanket for Avery Johnson. At offensive line, center Hetch, left guard Leningag, and then right guard Portier. Those guys will be solid. Unfortunately, didn't make our top 25 offensive line this year. Too many losses, and then the replacements not so good. For the 3-3-5 defense, great linebacker core. Romaine and Purnell are back. You have VJ Payne behind him. Those two. Defensive end, Obizar. And then at nose tackle, Ila Leo. Should be solid for the Wildcats this season. I don't think there's too many tough games. Even though, we have 5, but I don't think it's gonna be too many. Week 0, again, this weekend we are doing Iowa State. Week 3 is kind of the next one, and that's technically a non-conference game against Arizona. It just was scheduled that way, which is kind of weird. I mean, Baylor played Utah last year, and that wasn't a conference game. We had the same kind of thing going on there. But we do have Baylor, week 6. In Waco against the Bears. And then week 10 against Texas Tech. Week 13 at Utah. I had the Arizona game there because it's in Tucson. It's early in the season. Let's say they lose in Dublin. Maybe they don't bounce back and they drop the ball there. We have them going 11-1. Okay. That's because we think they're going to be so close of games that's how they're going to get it done. We're actually expecting them and the other Big 12 team that we're going to get to in the top 10 to be playing each other there in the Big 12 championship game. The weakness for this team, I think, is finding a second gear. You hear it a lot from Kansas State fans of just not getting good ball distribution from Avery Johnson. Balls that are a little bit off, but I think he's really developed, and he didn't have too many turnovers last season. I think his turnover numbers are going to be lowered, and that's why you're going to get the 11-1 record that we're predicting. Again, got to find that second gear for the number 15 team, Kansas State. Okay. Number 14, Texas A&M. Mike Elko, second season for the Aggies down there in College Station. Changes. They lose pretty good wide receiver in Thomas to Georgia. Also, they lose Barber and Walker. Tight end Watson. Defensive end Scorton. And then DB Ratcliffe. And then obviously there's going to be a quarterback change, but not really because Marcel Reed took over the job during the season last year. I think it was in the beginning, then they kind of lost it and then gained it back. It was kind of a weird show there for Mike Elko, but he has this guy now. And Marcel Reed should be a key player and has to be a key player, especially through the air. Big pickup from North Carolina State, Casey Concepcion. Solid guy and should get a lot of touches, not just through the air, but on the ground. The offensive coordinator should be finding him some opportunities there. On the offensive line, and that's kind of why this team is going to be pretty solid. Zune at left tackle, Nabu Jr. at center. There's another guy right behind him, so there's some depth. And then at right guard, Reed Adams, who was a transfer last year from Kansas. For this pro-style offense, yeah, we're really digging it down there in the trenches. It's just how they're going to put it all together in the passing game. Because they struggled. They didn't even score a touchdown last year against Texas. So can they turn that around? Obviously throughout the season, and then once that Texas game comes in Austin, which we'll get to here in a few moments. On defense, Howell at defensive end should be solid. Got a lot of production from him. Should be getting some pretty good sack numbers. Linebacker York, veteran guy there. In front of them, defensive tackle Hicks. We love those big bodies. And one of the reasons why they're so up there, I think it's because of the secondary. They might have allowed 400 yards against LSU, but when it really mattered, they did not give LSU big plays. Just tripping the ball here and there. That's how you get 400 yards against Texas A&M. But this DB unit, led by Lee the third, Brooks, and then they actually have a guy coming through the portal. I think he's going to be pretty solid for them. Shaw out of Washington. It's a pretty good DB room there for the Aggies. And why we think they're going to go at least 8-4, probably 9-3. I think there's going to be somewhat of an improvement. Week 3, their first tough game, that's at South Bend. Could Elko get Texas A&M their first ever win in South Bend again against Notre Dame? And then there's this big gap that we have at week 9 against LSU on the road in Baton Rouge. Texas A&M hasn't won there in a while. I think we have to go back to 1994 and 1996. The last time Texas A&M has beaten LSU in Death Valley. Could be done this century, I think. And then week 11, we have a bye before that. So in between that LSU game, they got to go to Missouri. I think it's going to be a tough game for the offense against that Tigers D. As last year, they opened them up pretty well. We'll see if it happens again for Marcel Reed and company. And then week 12 against South Carolina. Yeah, that's going to be a toughie. They kind of dropped the ball. If they would have won that, they probably would have been the 4th team for the SEC in the playoff. And that would have kept out Indiana, technically, I think. But yeah, they got to win that one at home for sure. And then week 14, they're at Texas. And man, if they can get the win there, yeah, we're thinking 8-4, 9-3. I just think the Texas game they're not going to win. The South Carolina game is going to be a toughie, but should be doable. But the 3-4 is probably that one. Notre Dame, LSU, and Missouri. I think that's where they lose during the season, unfortunately, because of the weakness quarterback play. Marcel Reed's going to do well against weaker opponents, but when it comes against quote unquote elite teams, especially, you know, I guess Notre Dame's going to be pretty elite in the secondary. I don't see it happening for them. Yeah, that's one of the weaknesses going into 2025. Maybe it's a surprise to some. You know, this new era has opened up some doors. And the fox is now in the henhouse. And that fox is Boise State in at number 13. A lot of people already have them as the number 12 seed and the G5 representative in the playoff. And they should be. But here at your Sports Outpost, we don't like to play around. We like to get in front while we can. And we're going to put Boise at number 13. We are not alone. There were some AP voters that had them in around 15 and 16. So this is not much of a stretch. They should have a competitive game against Notre Dame that we already talked about in the beginning of the stream. And Spencer Danielson has done an excellent job this offseason and a lot of retention. Obviously, the changes is losing the big Heisman finalist Aston Genty, who's gone on to the NFL now, was the top running back pick, and I think is like the third highest paid running back at the moment in the NFL, which is kind of crazy. But that's the reason why he went to Boise State and why a lot of guys are going to Boise State these days. Wide receiver Camper is going to be a big guy gone. Made a lot of clutch moments, a lot of big plays for the Broncos. Defensive end Hassan, a lot of sacks. Another guy gone to the NFL. And then in DB area, Tubner and Oladipo. But I think the DB department is going to be kind of fine. The last changes is at the offensive coordinator position, but it's more like a reshuffle. Dirk Cutter is not the offensive coordinator now. He's a analyst. And then Nate Potter, who is the co-offensive coordinator, is now the official offensive coordinator. And technically, Matt Miller has moved into that co-offensive coordinator position. Broncos that were part of those legendary teams in the late 2000s, early 2010s. If you played NCAA 14, you know, Matt Miller was a stud at wideout. Nate Potter was a staple in the Boise State offensive line at tackle during those years, protecting Kellen Moore. But now they are helping out the Broncos, calling the plays and getting the job done there. For this West Coast offense, the key players, Mad Dog Maddox Madsen, who comes back, very safe quarterback, efficient quarterback. He likes running the ball as well. That's why they call him Mad Dog. And he will continue that. He might have a year where, like, we just see out of nowhere where he just sneaks into like a lot of finalists for like quarterback positions, offensive player position stuff, because of like the amount of interceptions he doesn't throw. He did have a few balls last season where I was like, oh, okay, that was a bad throw, but it was an interception. I think he's going to be improving. I mean, he beat out a 5-star guy in Nelson, who's moved on to UTEP now. But I think he's going to be just a big player this season. Another big player and probably one of the top tight ends in college football, Lauder, sorry. I don't know why I added an N there. Lauder is going to be pretty big for the Broncos this season. There's some, Camper's gone. Austin Bolt is unfortunately left because of off-field issues. So there's some, shoes to fill. And he was the third in terms of wide receiver yards last year. So it's good to have him back. Running back, you have now, obviously, the big dragon in Aston Genty now into the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. You got Sherrod, comes in from Fresno State. I wouldn't say had the best production last year, but the year before had some pretty good yards. Sire Gaines, who had some injury issues in the beginning of the year for his true freshman campaign, comes in for a sophomore one, and is fully healthy and ready to go, and has that same stance that Aston Genty had last year in the backfield, just standing there like Michael Myers. And your new Michael Myers that you saw in the beginning of the intro there is Sire Gaines. Dubar, guy that's been battling some issues with some injuries. Same with Gaines. He technically opened those opportunities for Gaines last year. Got those carries more later in the season. I think he's also going to be doing some stuff for... No, actually, I think it's Sherrod is going to be doing some stuff for special teams. Dubar was the interviewer that I read. And then Riley. If any of those guys go down, that guy is going to slot in. Excellent speed. Good ball or carrying vision. He played for a system in high school that was more like a run option. So it's kind of like translated well in that Boise offense. Just finds some great running lanes, and I'm expecting a lot from him this season in terms of when he gets those opportunities. The wide receiver positions, in my previews for the Boise State Broncos against Notre Dame, the one thing I'm worried about is like wide receiver production, and that's going to be part of the weaknesses. But they do have Caples, and they have Marshall, who should be stepping up this season in that camper role. They have Bates, who was a true freshman last year. He should be looking good for the Broncos. Henry, I think that's how you say that last name, right? I think that's that. Should be getting some more touches as well. The offensive line, and this is the reason why Boise State is so high. You have a potential high draft pick in Paige Casey at left tackle, who's going to be one of the best tackles in all of college football. You have Mason Randolph at center, who's had issues last year, and that's the reason why this offensive line has a lot of experience in depth, because he had an early season injury but came back in the back half. And then at right tackle, Schmidt. The guard positions, you have Carry-On and then Kenneth, but we might see some moving around. You have the Steele brothers in the interior. Mediar at the other tackle position. I think he filled in for Schmidt at right tackle in the Penn State game because he went down, I think, for a little bit. There's just a lot of depth in this Boise State offensive line. Well coached, well managed, well maintained, and that's why they're at number 13. The defensive 4-2-5 defense. This defense is also another reason why they're so up there. Spencer Danielson was the former defensive coordinator when Andy Avalos was in charge. Obviously got the head coaching position at the end of the 2023 year, and kind of turned this defense back into kind of what it used to be, and just getting to the quarterback, finding different kind of combinations and blitz packages that just overwhelm teams. You saw that a lot against Washington State last year. One of the guys leading that charge is Virgin Morgan at defensive end. He should be just a guy that gets a pretty good amount of numbers, maybe close to Hassanen. Defensive tackle Feely. He is another guy that I'm a Boise State fan, so very lucky to retain. He entered the transfer portal, but ended up coming back. They didn't find a new landing spot, so it was kind of good for the Broncos to get him back, because he's going to be really solid there at defensive tackle. Linebacker Noshirani, who's one of the starters last season, kind of everywhere, and also caused a lot of havoc when he got the call to get a blitz in the pocket. Lou Simpson, but we'll see if Chase Martin fills the shoes there. And another reason why this team's going to be really good this season, in the secondary, McCoy, who had one of the top numbers in pass defended. I think he was top 3 and tied in that position, but he's actually going to be a backup, which is kind of crazy. And Mickey, who's a transfer in from Notre Dame, that guy, you're starting over McCoy. That's telling me something, that this secondary has a lot more depth than what I'm anticipating. And then you also have returners, Benningfield, who got targeted a lot, but rose to a lot of those occasions, had a lot of good numbers. And Washington, this secondary, this whole defense, is kind of crazy how much Spencer Danielson was able to retain with not a lot of losses, which has been pretty impressive with the amount of resources that Boise State is dealt with. But that's the reason why they're at number 13 for us. Biggest games, they really only have 3. I put up 4 just because I didn't want to have too much bias here. Again, guys, there's a reason why the room is blue. But anyways, South Florida gonna be the first test. I'm expecting that game to be a blowout, but we'll just put it as a tough game. That again gonna be pretty hot down in Tampa. Week 6 is where we have to wait until the next big game for Boise, and that's in South Bend against Notre Dame. If you saw my preview, yes, I am predicting my Boise State Broncos to go 12-0. It is what it is, and I'm riding with it. I'm sticking with it because I really believe in this team that's even better than last year. I guess UNLV is going to be the number 3 toughest game. That's in week 8. They have a huge transition. I know their new head coach Mullins, a pretty high-profile guy. UNLV is very lucky to have gotten him. I don't know how it's going to all work. We'll see how that goes. On the week 13, I picked Colorado State there because Boise does have a game every season at home where it's just like a team they should be just demolishing makes it a game. I think it's going to be that one. That's going to be the toughest game. But still, I think Boise State's going to go 12-0. The weakness for the Broncos, wide receiver production. Caples, solid guy, probably going to get the most touches, but is Marshall going to be finally fulfilling that potential? The former 5-star recruit when he went to Texas A&M, and then unfortunately had those issues, had to go to the JUCO realm, and then came back up to the FBS with Boise State. Didn't get too much production from him last year. Does he do it this season? We'll have to wait and see, as I think that's the weakest area for the Broncos, which isn't really that weak to begin with. And why we have a number 13 again. Boise State. Number 12, SMU. Rhett Lashley, another season under his belt, got the Ponies to a playoff. Did an excellent job and also getting them to the ACC championship game. But the changes, they lose a lot. The 2 top running backs, Smith and Johnson, 2 top wide receivers in Daniels and the other Smith. Somewhat of an offensive line shuffle. They do bring in some guys from the portal. But I think the biggest losses is there at defensive tackles. Harrison Hunt and Harvey at defensive end. The guys replacing them, is it going to work out? Linebackers Walker and Wilson as well, and then another defensive back shuffle. Kevin Jennings, as we move to the key player positions, he's going to be the guy. I just have a lot of faith in him. I know the Penn State game didn't go well. He didn't really get a chance, to be honest with you, against BYU last year, and those were the losses besides the Clemson game. I think he's really going to step up this season. I don't know about Heisman candidate, but he'll be definitely in the realm of, those end of season finalist contention trophies. They're bringing a running back from UCLA, Harden. We'll see how it works out and see if he can replicate some production there. And I know they have a true freshman from last season that'll be back there with him as well. Hudson, kind of the only guy coming back at the wide receiver position that you're like, okay, that guy's solid enough to be okay with. But they do have some true freshmen wide receivers that are 4-star guys, Cooper and Singleton. I'm expecting somewhat from them. Maybe there might be a similar kind of situation that Auburn was in last year, but we'll have to wait and see. One reason why I really also like SMU is their offensive line, and particularly in the tackle positions. You got Baird and Williams coming back. Baird at left tackle, Williams at right tackle, left guard Parr at left guard, and then the other 2 positions are going to be transfer guys. But realistically, their whole offensive line have been transfer guys. Rhett Lashley has done something that I think a lot of people have not mentioned or given him enough credit for, is that he's been a great guy that has adapted his just transfers in general, but the offensive line has been really, really good. And that's what I'm expecting them to be, really, really good in protecting Kevin Jennings. And then also, if there's not enough, I mean, you can only give a quarterback so much time. Kevin Jennings can get outside that pocket and evade pressure as well. And that's why SMU is going to be so good this year. Regardless of the amount of production and weapons that they lost, Kevin Jennings is going to be able to distribute that ball really well. For the 4-2-5 defense, they have their bookends coming back, Robinson and Smith. Behind them, you have Kilgore, one of the linebackers that got some decent production for them last year. They have a transfer in Barker, who should be pretty solid. That is coming in from East Carolina. And then I'm going to butcher this last name because I forgot to look it up how to say it properly before I did this. Inwan Kobia, the defensive back, and then Ahmed Moses should be guys leading the secondary and keeping games close. And what, you know, when we get to these toughest games, they're going up against some pretty good quarterbacks. You got Baylor with Robinson, KSU with Hoover, Clemson with Klubnik, Miami with Beck, and then Louisville with Miller. Those guys should be able to make it a game and keep it close. For the toughest games, though, again, Baylor week 2. They haven't beaten the Bears since 1986. So we'll see if they can get it done this century. And it should be, again, an impactful game to the playoff, because when we go to the end of the season, when we're looking at who beat who, ACC versus Big 12, that's one of the games that we'll put our finger on, and why we had it in our top 10 non-conference games. Week 4, TCU on the road. At the moment, on paper, it's the last for the battle for the Iron Skillet, which is kind of weird. I thought they would have been able to schedule this game year in and year out, but at the moment, that might be the last game we have for a hot minute. And TCU is going to want to win it because, you know, last year Dykes got kicked out of the game or ejected. I don't remember what part. I think it might have been midway or towards the end of the game. So that's a game that TCU definitely has on the calendar no matter what, to make sure they show up. So it's a road game in Fort Worth. We'll see how they handle the pressure there. Week 8, they're at Clemson. That's going to be a toughie, but this team should make it one. I mean, they were going pound for pound, punch for punch in that comeback in Charlotte in that ACC championship game. Like, it really felt like it was just out of reach. But man, Kevin Jennings was just lining it up and getting the ball down the field. And I'm expecting a little bit of the same. It should be a great matchup in the ACC there. It's actually that one, and then the Clemson-Louisville game that I'm really looking forward in the Atlantic Coast Conference for games that I'm really looking forward to watching. Week 10, Miami. I mean, I guess this team is top 10 in the AP, top 10 for people that I think maybe might not know ball. I think there's a lot of issues. We'll get into it when we do that watch along for Miami versus Notre Dame. But yeah, that's just one that I do have on there. But SMU did the job No, that was against Florida State. But this game's at home. So, you know, they did beat Florida State at home. Another Florida team comes in who did have a transitional quarterback. Wasn't so good. Same kind of offensive line. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, Miami doesn't have Cam Ward. Like, what are we saying here? I know Carson Beck has some decent stock, but he did have a shoulder injury that took him out of the rest of that season. The SEC championship game and then the rest of the playoffs. So it's the reason why Georgia kind of lost technically. I don't know what people are on with pitting Miami in the top 10. Louisville, number 13. Oh no, week 13. Sorry. That's gonna be the determiner of who plays Clemson in Charlotte. Winner of that game. 10-2 is what I'm expecting for SMU. That's why we have them at number 12. This should be a playoff team still. I think it would be even better. Let's say they lose to Clemson, and for some reason, maybe they lose another game, I guess, but they still don't make the ACC championship. Maybe they lose to Clemson and Louisville. Or no, how about this? They lose to like Clemson and Miami. They beat Louisville. Louisville plays. So for some reason, because SMU lost 2 conference games, they have to play Clemson. Clemson goes to the playoff, but then SMU's kind of just there. I think there's a lot of scenarios where SMU gets into the playoff once again. Their weakness, elite opponents. Game against Clemson, the game against Penn State, and some people might not believe this, but BYU's pretty elite in defense. It's the reason why they beat SMU on the road last year. So elite opponents, that's their big issue. If they can address that, find that second gear, find that other option, get Kenny Jennings more time, maybe a better game plan, better prepared. That's going to be the difference in why SMU probably loses 2 to 3 games. Okay, 11. South Carolina. Shane Beamer. This guy, I'm falling in love with Beamer here. I don't know why. It's just the energy, the way he is able to communicate with his players. Every given Saturday even solidified that more. I was already like kind of bought in. But now I'm like, okay, I'm all in. South Carolina, number 11, very solid team. I know they lose a lot on defense and at the offensive line. Those are the changes. Knight, Martin Scott, linebackers, defensive tackles, 2 guys that are going to be playing on Sunday, Sanders and Hemingway. The reason why they did get into a lot of games against Alabama, the game against LSU, why there were close games. Defensive back, another one to the NFL. And Worry. Some changes on the offense. New coordinator, Mike Shula. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Pretty veteran coach. Was a former head coach at Alabama all those years ago. That was like 20 years ago. But a guy that's been around football, and I think should be a great asset to Shane Beamer and the staff in calling plays. Tight end Simon's also gone. That was a great outlet for Lenore Sellers, unfortunately. And then running back position, Sanders was a stud, just running over guys, big body, opening up holes sometimes by himself. And then there was offensive line guys lost to the portal, and then have moved on, unfortunately. Key players, Lenore Sellers. He's the guy. He's just crazy anomaly. I don't think he has a problem passing, as he's a dual threat quarterback, but really a true dual threat quarterback. Maybe that's because of the wide receiver core. Yeah, I mean, he has Harbor, Bennett Jr. back, and then he has like a ton of new freshmen that are adding into that lineup. And then on top of that, and one of those freshmen is his little brother, who was his go-to guy in high school. Yeah, this team is going to be pretty lit. I think the offensive line. See, the Garrett Nussmeier one, like, okay, we're criticizing their offensive line, but it's Lenore Sellers. He is just, again, an anomaly, true dual threat quarterback. Get out of a lot of situations, extends plays. His offensive line doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. They just need to be giving him enough time to get to his, wide receivers that are going to get open. They are definitely getting it open. One guy joining him in the backfield, Rochelle Faison, probably one of the best group of 5 running backs that is coming through the portal from Utah State. In our preview for, I think, the Missouri game, we talked about him for a little bit. He had a great game, at least in my opinion, against Boise State. And that's, a great defensive front. I'm expecting him to produce just as well. He's actually pretty physical for a guy that doesn't look like he has a lot of size on him. So I think he's going to be like, raising some eyebrows in the SEC there when the season comes and hits. For a defense that has multiple formations that it runs, 4-2-5, 3-3-5. You have Stewart and Thomas Jr. back. Actually, I think I forgot to pick Kennard there at defensive end in the changes. Another one I forgot. Regardless, you still have probably the two best bookends in college football there. And that's why South Carolina is at number 11. Not because of just Lenore Sellers, the awesome weapons that he has around him, but on the other side, those two guys, Stewart and Thomas Jr., are going to get after their opposition's quarterback. You have Goodwin in the middle of them. He's going to be getting more snaps, replacing Saunders and Hemingway. That defensive back, Cisse, and then Kilgore and Collier. Cisse is coming in from North Carolina from the transfer portal. Just great defensive back right there. Toughest games, they have probably one of the most dense schedules, but again, they have Lenore Sellers, that offense of weapons, and then those defensive front guys. New linebacker core, but I'm 90% sure Shane Beamer is going to have those guys being able to roll in this upcoming season. I kind of have Virginia Tech there. I think they're definitely going to win that in the Beamer Bowl. That's in our neutral site field. Missouri, because they're ranked, they're going to be a great team this year. We'll see how South Carolina's offense does against their defense. Bye week before that LSU game in week 7 on the road in Baton Rouge. I think that's a very winnable game for South Carolina, which they haven't won since like 1996. Again, new century, new things going to be happening. Oklahoma week 8. I think that might be a tough game. Oklahoma is going to be coming off the Texas Red River rivalry after that week, so they might be looking to bounce back, and especially if South Carolina goes through LSU, Missouri, Virginia Tech with wins. Oklahoma's gonna be like, okay, this great team's coming to, or we're going to this great team. Maybe we sneak a win there. Bama, they got Bama, but at home, week 9. That's the week after that. And then this is another kind of a crazy stretch from week 7 to week 10. LSU, Oklahoma, Bama, and then Ole Miss in week 10 on the road there in Oxford. We'll see how it goes. But I do believe in these Gamecocks and getting most of those games. Week 12 bye. Before that, they have A&M on week 12. But before that, actually, is what I meant was that they have a bye. That was a tricky one. I think Elko is going to be really on it because they dropped the ball last year again. If A&M wins that game in Columbia, they're a playoff team. They didn't. They came short. South Carolina kind of made their case a little bit better, but unfortunately, again, they needed to beat LSU or Bama. Week 14, Clemson. Big one. Let's say, some of those other games don't go well for them. They just need that one more on their resume. I think that would help them out. But again, the SEC is so packed with great teams that they're just going to beat each other up. And, someone's got to lose games. Someone got to lose those games. We are thinking 8-4, 9-3. I think if they go 9-3 this year, they're a playoff team because of what they're going to have to be going against. It just, they can't lose the teams that they're not supposed to. Like, if they lose to like Oklahoma, but they beat like Bama, that's not going to look good. And they still go 8-4 or no, 9-3. That might keep them out. Missouri, maybe the committee doesn't like it that they lost to them. Maybe Missouri falls apart towards the end of the season. They cannot lose to Virginia Tech and go 9-3. They just have to lose to the right teams, if that makes any sense. And I think this team can do that and get into the playoff. That's why we have them at 11. And then the weakness, linebacker core consistency. Obviously, new guys coming in, stepping up. They have a transfer, Murphy from Florida State. And then Johnson, who's been there. He's kind of getting his opportunity, I believe, as a true sophomore. So we'll see how that goes. I think that's going to be the thing that might hold them back if they don't make the playoff.